Welcome to the Hemlock State Explorer. We are at McCalls Ferry along the Mason-Dixon Trail just north of Holtwood Hydroelectric Plant. You can see the earlier parts of this adventure at hemlockstateexplorer.com, where we explored the amazing waterfalls at Mill Creek and the fascinating historic ruins of Lock 12 and the associated area, including some old lime kilns. Now we're at McCalls Ferry, and you can either take the Mason-Dixon Trail all the way here from Lock 12 parking area, or you can actually walk on a gravel road. The choice is yours. The gravel road is, of course, much easier and quicker, but if you do that, you miss out on the adventure of Mill Creek and the waterfalls. McCalls Ferry is a nature preserve administered by the Lancaster County Conservancy, although we're on the York side of the river, but nevertheless it follows the beautiful Oakland Run, and I'm hoping to see some excellent cascades and some peaceful woodland ravines. So stick with us. This is going to be an adventure-packed excursion. Here's the peaceful Susquehanna, peaceful in this region, which is called Lake Aldred, just north of Holtwood Dam. And that little dip, that niche between the hills, is actually Kelly's Run. You can check out that adventure at hemlockstateexplorer.com. But look at those cliffs, high hills, and the peaceful water at this point. Okay, my viewers, because I love you, it's time for another public service announcement. I should do a series on things that look like poison ivy, or how to distinguish poison ivy, because I get so many questions about it. What you see before you is the vile nemesis poison ivy with the 3 leaves. The leaves of 3, leave them be. Sometimes poison ivy can have a toothed margin, as you see here, and here it is a relatively smooth margin, but that's poison ivy. One of the things poison ivy is often confused with is this here, another leaf that looks kind of like poison ivy. I see 3 leaves. Do I need to leave them be? Well, no, you don't have to, because this is our old friend Acer negundo, sometimes called box elder, sometimes called ash-leafed maple. I just like saying Acer negundo. As you can see, though, if you look for other leaves on this tree, right here is a leaf with 5 leaflets, and we see more leaves with 5 leaflets, and it does trace back to a woody stem right there. Although, to be fair, poison ivy in some of its presentations can have a woody stem. But this is the harmless Acer negundo you often find near water, and well, there's the Susquehanna right there. And actually, here's the main trunk of this Acer negundo. But if we take a leaf off, let's take a leaf off of here and do a close comparison to poison ivy, and you'll see that although both of them can have these. There we go. Now we're focused. Although both can have a tip, an elongated tip on the leaf, you can tell Acer negundo's is much more pronounced. It's more like a spike. Yes, this poison ivy leaf has an elongated tip, but this is more like a spike. And one more definitive way to tell the difference between poison ivy and box elder, and I don't really like this way because you have to get too close for comfort to the poison ivy to tell, but it is definitive, and it'll settle for sure. But if you look at this poison ivy, the leaflets are alternately arranged on the stem. So you see up here there's a leaflet coming off the stem, then a little lower on the other side a leaflet, and then here you see leaflets. They're not exactly across from each other. Let me zoom in here because I'm really not willing to get any closer, but they're not exactly opposite each other. One is further up the stem, one is further down. But if we go to Acer negundo, let's zoom out. We'll go over to our friend Acer negundo, the box elder. You can see that the branches and indeed the leaflets right here are oppositely arranged. You see that? Each branch, each leaflet is exact, they come off the main stem, and all the side stems exactly opposite each other. Here's a good view. After a peaceful walk along the Lake Aldridge section of the Susquehanna, we turned inland and followed Oakland Run rather, up the McCalls Ferry Trail, and we encountered this cascade. Looks like a small waterfall. It's a very interesting upright rock. Unfortunately, we can't get to it from the bottom on account of the slippery rocks and the thick rhododendron brush, and there's a nice crop of poison ivy on these rocks, so we're not going to go any further there. But we can enjoy this waterfall from the top, and man, the water is moving after all the recent rain. There's a log jam and some cascades up ahead. I think this is going to be one of those trails that's going to be much like Mill Creek, cascade after cascade, but we'll see if that proves to be true. Here is another cascade on Oakland Run on the McCalls Ferry Trail. I like how this one spills over the top of that rock table in the middle. And here is another treasure. Zoom in a bit. We'll walk along. Just be very careful of the slick rocks. Well, here is a full-fledged waterfall coming down from a big rock cliff, and although it obscures the view of the waterfall, that hanging rhododendron bush is really beautiful, and it adds a charm. So we won't hold it obscuring the waterfall against it. Zoom out a bit. Here's the area. So this waterfall and the waterfalls like it are not actually very easily accessible. They take some effort to get down because the trail is probably about 10-15 feet above us, and as you can tell, the rocks are slick and there's a lot of leaf debris. So just be very careful if you come down to get a close-up view of this beautiful waterfall. And here's a small cascade, and it looks like this could be a swimming hole in the summer. And just where the water goes out of view, it goes over that waterfall we just visited. And here you can see that the trail comes down closer to the water. And I suspect on account of the being down in the ravine and the foliage, the ferns and the moss and the rhododendron, that this probably gets wet and stays wet for quite a while. You have the raging stream over there. Yeah, now we're down in the ravine. But at any rate, this probably gets wet and stays wet, so I would urge you to exercise extreme caution whenever you visit. And here you can see the trail in many places just goes right up over these slippery rocks. It will make some assistance of the rhododendron. Yeah, see, we're walking right on rocks right here. The trail gets a little easier, so just be careful, but this is what you're treating yourself to when you come here. We'll zoom out. Isn't that amazing? Praise the Lord for his creative beauty. And wow, look, looks like we have some rock scrambling to do. What a beautiful area. I hear even more water flowing up ahead. Walking out onto the stream. Here's some rocks sticking out, being very careful. Okay, well, let's go see what's up that way. After following Oakland Run closely for about 2/10 of a mile, the trail heads uphill, and there are a number of really interesting looking rock formations that you can climb up to, but they don't really afford much of a view of anything on account of the foliage. The ravine deepens as the trail follows the rim above. We can hear the water, but we can't see it far down below except through a few windows in the foliage and at some rock outcroppings. But as you can see, the trail becomes thick with rhododendron and even has those wonderful rhododendron tunnels that we just passed through. After emerging from the rhododendron tunnel, the character of the trail changes significantly. We've just entered a tall cathedral-like hemlock stand with other various deciduous trees. Looks like a lot of oak, some chestnut oak, gray birch, and black cherry among others. But for this short stretch, the ground, the rocky terrain gives way to humusy, soft, springy ground for which our feet are thankful. So far, the trail has been fairly rocky with lots of rock outcroppings that you need to climb up from time to time. So I would rate this trail as moderately difficult. You could still take the family on it, but the kids are probably going to, depending on their age, going to need some help. And here you can see the ravine, a clearer view of the ravine below on account of the hemlock forest. There are many rock outcroppings that seem to just jut out from the side of the cliffs, and this is one of the larger ones. Unfortunately, many of them don't lend themselves to photos, so I really can't even try to communicate that through either photo or video. But this one gives us a clear view. You're just going to have to get out yourself and see this. The stream, as you can see up here at what I call the upper part of the trail, is much more calm. It doesn't have the cascades. There are cascades, but they're fewer and farther between, and less both in frequency and grandeur up here. But here's a view of the ravine that we're hiking along. We're at a spot where the trail descends to the stream and the ravine widens. We still have rock outcroppings, but this opens up into an almost idyllic looking campsite. We have that big rock there, a cliff of rocks here, glorious calm stream with some ripples up ahead. It looks like a makeshift bridge. Let's see if we can cross this. Yeah, this is not a problem. Thank you to whoever put this in place. Wow, what a nice campsite. The blue blaze indicates that we're on the Mason-Dixon Trail. This would be just a nice place to hang out. Loving the rocks with the ferns colonizing the top. The sky is cleared now. Let's take a look at that big rock formation and the stream. After passing through the campsite, the trail becomes much easier and encounters a few more cascades where another stream dumps into Oakland Run, and then the trail turns away from the stream and for about 6/10 of a mile ascends a hill up out of the ravine via an old state game lands road. So you can start the trail at Holtwood like we did, or alternatively you can start up here at State Game Lands 181, and you see that there is ample parking here as well. A few things to note: that the trail is quite rocky in spots and difficult, but in other spots the trail is easy and flat, and as you can see, we're walking on an old gravel road right here in State Game Lands 181. Also be aware that in parts the trail is rife with poison ivy, more so along the Susquehanna, but there's still plenty of the nefarious weed through the ravine. It certainly is a product of the fall, so be on the lookout for poison ivy all throughout your adventure. And we've made it back to the bottom of McCalls Ferry Trail where it hooks up with the gravel road. You can see the Cascades at the bottom of the stream, and as we pan right you can see where Oakland Run flows into the Susquehanna at that big rock right there on the right. Isn't that interesting? You can climb to the top of that rock from the trail, and there's a little fire ring. So we want to thank you for joining us today at the Hemlock State Explorer, exploring McCalls Ferry, part 3 of our 3-part series. You can check out part 1, the historic Loch 12, and part 2, the Mill Creek Trail with its amazing waterfalls, along with all of our other adventures at hemlockstateexplorer.com. And we can't wait to see you on our next adventure.